Have you ever stopped to think if those absolutely massive corporations from your favorite games and anime could actually exist in our world? And I'm not talking about just any old company. No, we're talking about organizations that wield the power of a small nation. So let's do this. Let's break down what really makes these fictional giants tick, looking at them through a real-world lens of power, law, and corporate structure.
I mean, just imagine it for a second. What if the Shinra Electric Power Company actually controlled our entire energy grid? Or if Umbrella was a real, and I mean real, pharmaceutical giant? And what if a super-secret UN agency like NERV was operating just out of sight? You see, these aren't just one-dimensional villains. They're these incredibly complex organizations that really tap into our deep-seated, real-world anxieties about power.
And right there, that quote, that gets to the absolute heart of this whole thing. See, these fictional giants could never exist as just companies, because they don't operate inside a system, they are the system. Their power is on the scale of a country. They're not just bending the rules of the market, they are the ones writing the rulebook. They're basically governments in disguise.
All right, so let's start at the most extreme end of the spectrum. We're going to look at a corporation that is so fundamentally criminal, so cartoonishly evil, that it just couldn't survive in our world, no matter how much power it seemed to have.
You know the logo, right? That iconic red and white umbrella. On the surface, the Umbrella Corporation is a world leader in medicine and pharmaceuticals. But underneath all that, its real business is cooking up horrifying biological weapons, like the T-virus. This is a company whose entire business model is, when you boil it down, a war crime. In the real world, come on, Umbrella's entire operation would collapse almost instantly. Its main product line is a flagrant violation of pretty much every international bioweapons treaty that exists. This isn't just some shady side hustle, it's a global criminal network. And after something like the Raccoon City incident, there's no plausible deniability. You can't just cover that up. The world wouldn't send a couple of special agents, it would send in the actual military and dismantle the whole thing, top to bottom.
Okay, so if a purely criminal enterprise like Umbrella is basically impossible, what about something a little more subtle? What about a corporation that doesn't just break the law, but becomes the law? Now this is where things start to get a lot more plausible, and honestly, a lot more terrifying.
And that brings us to the Shinra Electric Power Company from Final Fantasy VII. Shinra didn't just win a government contract, it straight up replaced the government. It controls all the energy, it runs the cities, and it commands its own private elite military, Soldier. In Shinra's world, you're not a citizen with rights, you're a customer with a service agreement. This is the absolute peak of unchecked corporate power.
And believe it or not, this isn't pure fantasy. Our own history has a pretty close parallel. The pre-war Japanese zaibatsu. These were these enormous family-owned conglomerates that were so deeply woven into the fabric of the government and military that they were effectively calling the shots on national policy. It literally took a full-scale military occupation by the Allies after World War II to forcibly break them apart. It just goes to show you how dangerously thin the line between corporate and state power can really get.
So we've seen the corporate state that's driven by profit. But now let's pivot to a completely different kind of monster. What if the most powerful organization in the world wasn't motivated by money at all?
And that's NERV from Neon Genesis Evangelion. NERV isn't a company. It's a special agency with a UN mandate, which gives it authority over every nation on Earth. Its public mission is to fight the angels, sure, but its real purpose, this thing called the Human Instrumentality Project, is a secret known only to the very top brass. Its power doesn't come from market share or profits. It comes from a global mandate, extreme secrecy, and operating completely above any law.
And when you put them side by side like this, you see two totally different roads that lead to the exact same place: absolute power. You've got Shinra over here, the poster child for runaway capitalism driven by profit and greed, and on the other side you have NERV, this extreme bureaucracy driven by a secret fanatical mission. Their motivations, their power sources, they're complete opposites. But the one thing they have in common, the thing that makes them both so scary? Zero. External oversight. There is absolutely no one to hold them accountable for anything. All right, now we're going to make our final, and I think most important, turn. We've looked at the impossible criminal organization and the all-powerful corporate state. But what if the biggest threat isn't some mustache-twirling villain at all?
And this question really gets to the heart of it. We can easily understand a villain who wants to take over the world, right? That's classic evil. But what about a company that's just doing its job and in the process causes absolute disaster?
And that brings us to Shaft Enterprises from Mongol Police Pat Labor. Look, these guys don't want to rule the world. They're not making bioweapons. They are just a very successful tech and construction company, and they are relentlessly pursuing progress and profit with a complete and total disregard for the consequences. Their danger isn't malice, it's amorality. They're just building the future, and if that future happens to be a disaster, well, hey, that's just the cost of doing business.
So this table really puts it all together. It's a whole spectrum. We start at the top with Umbrella, a threat so wild it feels completely disconnected from our reality. Then we move down through the state-like power of Shinra and the secret government agency of Nerve. But as you get closer to the bottom, you end up at Shaft Enterprises. And suddenly, that closeness to reality meter is cranked all the way up to very high. The threat morphs from a clear, obvious bad guy into something, well, something disturbingly familiar.
So why do we even tell these stories? Why are we so drawn to them? I think it's because these fictional corporations, from the most fantastical to the most boringly realistic, hold up a mirror to our own world and to our deepest anxieties about where we're headed.
I mean, these stories hit home because they're just exaggerated versions of things happening right now. We already see the lines blurring between governments and corporations thanks to lobbying and campaign finance. We're already grappling with the huge ethical questions posed by big tech and AI. And really, at the heart of it all is that one single fundamental fear, that there are powerful organizations out there operating with absolutely no accountability to any of us.
And so, that leaves us with one final, kind of chilling thought. We can all sleep soundly tonight knowing that Shinra and Umbrella aren't real. They're fiction. But the real question is, in a world that is so driven by relentless progress and the pursuit of profit, isn't it possible that a company like Shaft, a company that isn't evil, just dangerously indifferent, already exists?